Good morning. Markets do not seem to be too convinced about this situation, but let me get up some charts here. By the way, those of you in social media, for some reason, I can't type to you today. That's not working. But good morning. So, part of our comments yesterday was something like this is not over in a day, regardless of this giant gap up that occurred. It's a start of a turn, but certainly not out of the woods. And yesterday, little sell-off was one of those situations where, we say prices won't go down because they didn't go up. And, for a while, they were just chopping around. And you can see up here, and let's go to a 15-minute chart. You know, they had gapped up to resistance. So we knew there were going to be sellers there. And the question was, can they absorb the supply? Right? Resistance is supply. Demand, was whether it was, I guess, short covering, it was a surprise, of course, fear of missing out. And there's the demand into a resistance area. And when we say absorbing supply, we look at the price action. And if it starts going sideways, if we see breakdown failures, bottoming tail bars, that communicates that buyers continue to step up on dips. And we look for a pivot to form, a bar with three higher lows to the left and right, even on a 5-minute chart. And that would tell us, we got a 5-minute chart here. You see pivot low, pivot high, it's inching up there. And so it's grinding up toward that resistance area over there to the left. And then it's like, oh, will it go sideways? And then if it goes sideways, as for a little while, that leads us to thinking, hey, this can break out and go higher. Well, at some point, traders just got tired of it, and it's like, okay, where's the next news item? Oh, this is going to, continue. Give me all the cheer and so on. Then it sold off and it starts bottoming out over here at this support area. And it's like, okay, let's start to rebuild. And it looks like it's going to start to accelerate back up as it makes this bottom. And of course, we look at these patterns that tell us what's happening. And the ideal scenario is where we can have multiple time frames all aligned together. And eventually over here, especially, I thought, okay, wide range bar up. I even commented in the room, more low the cues, they were looking like on a 5-minute, like a bull flag. And I was ready to participate on the next move up if it could clear this highs, and it didn't. And then we know, traders were just like, it ain't happening, and hit the bid. And so now we start over again. And that put us with this topping tail bar. And it's a pretty tough place in that it's not it's a pattern right now that suggests a move down, but it's not the type of pattern. We call this it could be a measured move, but they happen at the beginning of a move, meaning you have this breakdown, and like this bar right here, right? It tries to go up and it fails, and you get the next move down. The second one can work, but the ranges are so large. It's like, okay, I get you just have to put your stop there if you short it under here. You could do that, right? And I thought, okay, where could it go? It might go all the way down here to the next level of support. And so you have that bias. You want to place the trade, you share size it accordingly. You could buy puts if they're not too expensive, and you see what happens. But this is only one bar. We all know the news is a moving thing that could happen at any time. Trump says a week, and there's a lot of news coming out, what the Iranians are saying. So it's just not a great situation. Like, meaning you could get blindsided here, but so intraday trades are safer, right? Meaning safer from the point of view you can, trade them where you're going to do a swing, something like this. It's all about share sizing, but look, I guess it's just a higher probability is a better way of putting it, of not getting jiggled out because you've only got one bar versus something that might set up like this. It tries to go up and it fails, and then boom. So we'll see how this develops. It's ongoing. What I do know, right, as we look at these option activity is yesterday really drove up the bearish sentiment. This call strike was almost 100 points higher. And I was like, I was surprised it was even up there, but it was coming down like that. The put strike didn't come down that much more. In any event, major support is down here. We've got this void, as I marked there, which means there's really isn't any support or resistance. So what are you going to trade against on the daily time frame? Well, there's really nothing there. So we need to see price action develop. Could just jiggle around here. Look at the 65-minute chart. We'll see where it's actually going to open. I want to look at the spiders again, and we'll look at the futures. But there's the gap up. For the most part, it held on. Maybe a test of this low down here. As always, going to bar by bar. What's going to happen today? Is a gap and crap? Does it gap and move up? So let me just go by. I want to look at the spiders again. I didn't really look to see where they were. So they're in the middle of the red bar, the big down bar from Friday. No man's land. And you can see on the 65-minute chart, you can see it's right in the middle. That big bar, that was like, okay, what's going on here? Gap's down yesterday. I was going to get a gap fill. Is it going to go lower? The war, we're holding off, and boom. So we're in the middle of the range. We have to wait for things to calm down. Calm down means patterns tightening up. As ranges tighten, we have a greater probability of determining the next move. Whereas they're wide and whippy, it's low probability. Common sense. So prices are inching down a little bit, as you can see on this 5-minute chart. We're trying to hold down there. And the problem, if you will, is that it's got a void. Right? That wide bar created a void. It's a big nothingness. There's a big nothingness underneath here to stop it from going down. Now, when we look at, maybe trader pivot lines, people look at subjective things, and that might be a stopping point, which is what we'll be looking at, right, in the green room today. We'll look at that. I don't know if I have them on here, futures. So look, this just nothing here. It's coming down to this low. And so we do have this pivot from that formed overnight right there. And that's why we utilize these pivots. They're called swings. Some places call them fractals. Whatever you call them. It's where there was a turning point, and that gives us some reference point with the futures, at least, to where buyers might show up on that retest. Break above yesterday's high. What are you talking about, Stephen? Oh, ET. I can look at that for you. John could look at it, but so that it's in an uptrend. It's showing relative strength. You got a bottoming tail bar. It's erratic, but it is strong. You're gonna have to give it ample room. So sure, but these kind of patterns, they jiggle around a lot. Read that article, Tight versus Loose. I'm going to do something else about this. I was thinking this morning about a few things to write a new article and put together some things. All right. So as I mentioned, we're getting a retest. Qs are doing the retest, and see how buyers show up there. You got the same reversal, and it broke down. It's still below there. It hasn't been able to regain this level. It's in a downtrend, moving out. 20s pointing down, 50s pointing down. Put things in the context of, short-term reversals, patterns like this that may stabilize They're in the context of a nasty drop. The weekly chart is also broken down. You see the next support level over there on that area there to the left. It's down lower. So we'll see if lower is going to be in the cards in the next coming days. So the Dow, same story. That gap down and it had the reversal, on the day charts, which really what we need to rely on more, the day charts than these, because this is lower volume overnight trading, but it is a bullish wide range bar, and there's why. There's a big void, and same story. Does it hold on to the swing low, or is it going down to test the lows? That's the unknown. That's what we do every day. Make an assessment to place a trade on the daily time frames. As I said already, overlapping bars, whippy bars, range expansion bars. Stay away from this. From swing trading, the daily chart perspective, we look for tighter patterns in a trend, things to set up, and we don't have that right now. Right? So same story here in the Russell, coming down to retest that low. We'll see if buyers begin to step up in a smaller time frame, little range expansion bar into that. All right. Oil's up a little bit, not a big deal. Wide, whippy, uncertain. Where's it going to go? So this is obviously a big focus, and little short-term moves up in crude oil rattle traders, and equities go down. In addition to oil, there is interest rates or the bond market. Right? So oil's going up a little, and bond prices are going down, which means interest rates are going up, which means there's pressure on equities. That's the intermarket environment we have right now. And been there, done this, seen this before, and the time will pass when no one will care about it anymore. Not to the extent that they do today. Gold is down. It's going to take time to stabilize. Like big giant ranges. It's on some major support. It's on the 200. It's going to take time for the daily time frames to tighten up. Silver, a little tighter, but again, 1 day stabilization doesn't do much for us. If you're trading these intraday, this isn't even a great setup. I'm thinking if it clears these highs, it's not even a great setup. Bitcoin, it's just not a great setup right now in the broader markets, in any of these markets where we look, where we've got these tighter patterns with a higher probability. And yeah, we want what we want, right? Good setups with the money, but we got to wait for things to set up here. This is a little better. Looking at Bitcoin, not great on the daily time frame, but it gapped up. Yes, it moved up, right, on the news, and it held the gain. So if this could clear this highs, and you can see the little void, little pullback and gap reversal in a few days, equal highs here. Those stocks that are related to, yeah, possible long on Bitcoin, related to this instrument, if it can just get back up here and take this out, that's a decent setup for intraday. Right? Really not for a swing, but and we always say call it what you want, right? It suggests it's going to go up if it can clear those highs. Call it a head and shoulders, call it a shakeout, call it whatever. Right? It's a pattern that was in a downtrend, moved down, it moved up sharply. And here's an example of that absorbing supply. I'm repeating this because so many that hear us talk about that, they're like, what are you talking about, absorbing supply? Because they always hear support, resistance, and so on. And it's like, hey, what is resistance? It's supply. what is going on here? Demand. And so the demand absorbed supply. It tried to go down, it came back up again. And so if it can clear that, right, there's no resistance, nothing of significance. So that'll be something to keep an eye on. And, whether it's MSTR or coin or one of those instruments that trade with this. Well, the dollar moved up a bit, you know, so euro coming down. So the dollar is, you know, dollar went up a lot. Now it's correcting. You see the weekly chart. Look at the weekly chart. Look at that nasty breakdown in the euro. So the dollar, just look at UUP, had a big move up. And so now it's backing and filling a little bit. And so software, we've been keeping an eye on this, starting to show some relative strength. And of course, semiconductors. Where's my SMH chart symbol? There we go. Is it going to hold this low? Is it going to consolidate up here? So the bottom line to all of this is news will be coming out. We'll gather more information. We'll see what candles or bars form in the coming days. And we'll have a greater insight as to the direction of these markets than individual stocks. Well, yours, Dan.
Good morning. I said yesterday, I sure thought that was a ridiculous taco pop. So, see if we can get a retest or not, but no, we're pulling in here good. But hourlies look like we might fill the gaps today. We're working on failed buy setups on the hourly. Wow, my voice is still messed up. Sorry about that. Let's see, I don't have any alarms. We have very low inventory. We're actually flat in the ETF and directional. But I did post Joby short 1, 2, 3. Alarm. A couple earnings here. 24.50 bullish gap, maybe put spread on a pullback lens. That's a nasty downtrend. Daily, weekly, monthly. That's a short watch. Nasty down, but recovering a little. Nothing. That's another nasty downtrend. That might be headed to the graveyard. Opening flat. But that's just bearish price action when it hugs the declining 20 like that. That's ugly. 29.25. That's a bearish gap down. Let's watch that for a short in the first 30 minutes. Nothing important. I mean, I don't know if that was earnings upgrade or what. Profit or in was an upgrade. It's just no better, as Greg said. It's very difficult here. Yeah, I think APO was the one they are, capping redemptions of 5%. And that's, I think, causing a run on these things. I heard something interesting and some guy talking, he said, like if you have a new bond issue and everybody wants in it, they purposely, oversubscribe because they know they're only going to get 1% of it. And he said the opposite is happening on these firms now. That if you genuinely want out at 5% and you know you're not going to be allowed, then you ask for 20% liquidation. And that's the game. What's going on here? We've been watching these for a while. Kind of, this is the private credit stuff started with Al. And there's zero sign of a trend reversal. So these things, the old cockroach theory. When one has cockroaches, the others do. I guess Jeffrey says earnings tomorrow. I forget what the news was. Oh, I think somebody actually buyout rumors. Earnings tomorrow, so do anything with it. I forget the news, but it's given up its morning strength and no interest. Nothing. Nicker. No, that ain't bad. Well, it's excessive, the problem. So that's a bottoming pattern with bullish price action. Starting right here on the gap reversal. Higher pivot high. Converging in flat 2050. Price void. Bottoming weekly. If this were gapping up to under 23, I would say let's watch out, pull back. But gapping up to 24, too much. It's gapping on my target. ET, Stephen mentioned. I like it, Stephen. I like it. 20 MA, multi-week consolidation, rising 50, gap reversal here. It's just not ready, but it's definitely, we're particularly with the market iffy. But it's worth watching. Y'all remember what movie this was in? 18? Let's go to our watch list. KKR is another one of these private credit. I was watching this as a potential. But now the gaps must let it. Working. I got an alarm at 139. It's a bottoming pattern in process. ACM. It's a bear. I'm sorry, bull 1, 2, 3 with a gap reversal. So if it can take out these highs, I like. Oracle, we can take out Thursday's high. I like it as a put spread. Pelletier, we did a put spread yesterday. Like Titan stock this morning. Set me alarm. Wow, boy, I can't talk. Well, that still looks good. If we get a 1, 2, 3, I think that has room to 170. With oil falling, I'm watching Jets, nothing to do yet. Jovia, that's the short. OII. One of you yesterday mentioned it. If we get it, it's right at this prior pivot. But again, flat 20, rising 50, bullish price action. But titter. Alex, I reset my alarm at 70. These, I got an alarm at 292. 180 breakout of the void. So these are my best patterns that I had in a sea of mess. There's another one, closing breakout, void. I got an alarm at 231. Boeing, we did a put spread yesterday, and don't like the retracement. AMD bottoming pattern. I got an alarm at 205. Yelp closing breakout. I got an alarm at 25. DBA, little gap reversal, consolidation. Look, this is 3 weeks of bullish consolidation in the top 90% of this. So that's bullish. Preferred bottoming pattern. 3190. Hey, can AI do your taxes now? Hey, remember when AI was destroying all these individual industries? Did it destroy tax prep yet? Yeah, I know it hit the ACM, so probably. Tygo closing breakout uptrend, and look, this 20 MA didn't even flatten out like some of these others we were watching. I got an alarm at 74.50. BPC at Climo. I got an alarm at 102. Avgo. That is a big, ugly mess. Like yesterday's high put spread. JPZ. This is an ETF for these private credits. Alex gave me these two. Nothing to do. And the Sam gave me this with a short idea. And it says bio key. Be sure to check that it's not a bio. Yeah, this Trump thing is, taco, and it cracks me up. And then Iran comes out and says, I ain't talking to him. I don't know what he's talking about. So, it's like it's impossible to know what to believe these days. Like even this stuff over the 4 TSA agents. I think they should have a vote. It's one line vote, one sentence. Do you agree to fund TSA and back pay? Yes or no? And they just get on the TV and point to each other. It's your fault. It's your fault. And it's both their faults because they put pork. They put pork in these bills. It should be a one-line thing. Do you want to fund them? Yes or no? J&J, low alarm. It's a continuation breakdown from the topping pattern. That all started with this breakout failure. And big old rounding top weekly. Look at that climb. Man, that was a beautiful bottoming pattern on a month. Look at that. But it's done. It's run its course. All right, it's 9:29 and I am done now. So any questions? I'll just sit back and watch the open. Watch Joby. Go. Joby triggered. Pelletier up alarm. All right, Pelletier, I'm sorry, Joby, let's wait for 5-minute low. it's disgusting, Greg, you know? I heard something else that said of all these videos on social media, that 75% of them are AI. I mean, granted, it looks so freaking real, but it's just everything is just bullshit.
It looks better than real. It's crazy.
Well, I know the women do, just ask Sam. That's why he's been consumed. Wow, the AD line closed at bullish 1675, and now it's opening up at negative 1650. That is one ugly swing in the AD line. It's 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 sloppy. It's sloppy because of all this. And I don't like the reward to risk for a swing unless you're going for maybe a bigger target on the weekly, monthly. Because if you're trading just if it's a typical 1, 2, 3 stop, buy yesterday's high, stop yesterday's low, it's only 1 to 1. But a put spread, I would be all over. Let's see if 3DT 18 by 64. So the spreads are nuts. Oh, tear up alarm. We might have met our target. 148, 144. No, we did not meet target. So let's let it play out. We
There's a void below and a void above, so tough to do here. I'm looking at, the equities and the futures.
I know we're bearish gap on the hourlies here. Yeah.
They're holding at the overnight low. And so, but looking at, spiders and Qs and all that, they're in the middle of nowhere. So
Mhm.
wait a little while. Bonds continue to go lower.
Alex here, Mitzi Steinberger. Feel like the market, but That ain't bad for a day tree. I've got nothing. ET, hey, ET, Steven, that's yours. I like it, Steven. Up yesterday's low. It's good. That's